Hey guys, so I am going to make it my life's mission to review more new original horror movies because I go on rants all the time about remakes, reboots, and sequels, yet I never really talk individually about new original horror being released. I usually talk about it in a monthly recap or at the end of the year or something, so I want to call attention to new original horror that's coming out more, so, look forward to that. I know everyone's been recommending No Exit to me. I did watch it, so look forward to that review early next week. And I want it to be in addition to my regular content, so I'm not going to take away any of my top 10 lists or tier lists or anything like that, but I just want to add in some original horror, sprinkle in some original horror reviews every now and again, not just the mainstream ones that everyone's talking about, especially if I liked them. So I was lucky enough to get early access to watch the new movie Fresh that is streaming on Hulu today. It's released today. It's not sponsored or anything, but I was sent a screening link for this movie a couple days ago, so I watched it and wanted to take advantage of the fact that I got to see it early to post a review on the day it's released. So Fresh follows a young woman named Noah who is sick of modern dating and meets Steve in a grocery store and decides to give him a chance. What she doesn't know is that she must do anything and everything to survive his unusual appetites. This is actually a directorial debut, so it's first film of Mimi Cave, and I just want to start off by saying I think she did an incredible job here. Now this movie is more described as a dark comedy or a comedy thriller, however I think it leans way more towards horror with light comedy throughout, which is actually my preference. If I'm gonna watch a dark comedy, I'd prefer the comedy to be on the lighter end and the horror to be on the heavy end, It's kind of similar to American Psycho in tone. There's certain scenes that are very reminiscent of that movie to me. And although the concept to me, when I first heard it, sounded a little bit cheesy, a little cliche, I feel like it does a really good job at not making it too silly, especially in the dating scenes. They are a little goofy, it's a commentary on modern dating and especially online dating, dating on apps and things like that. So there is that commentary. So it is a little bit silly at times, but I feel like with the atmosphere and the writing and the editing and the score and acting, everything really makes it so it's not super cheesy, because I feel like it could really lean that way, because the first 30 minutes or so is basically plays out more of a rom-com type movie or like a romantic type movie. There really isn't horror in the beginning. As I've stated in the past, I prefer there to be no romance at all in anything, any media or anything that I read or consume or watch or anything. I'm just not a romantic kind of girl. In real life I am, but not in my media. Obviously this movie is a little bit more on the anti-romance side because of what it turns into. So for me, it's a perfect balance of those two things. It's not too much romance, not too cliche or anything, and a lot of horror. You get a lot of horror in this. I'm also very picky, as you know if you've watched my channel for a while, that I'm very picky in particular when it comes to comedy. I'm not a huge fan of comedy and horror movies. Dark comedies are not my favorite subgenre of horror. I like some, I like a handful, but typically they're not my favorite. I just don't find them to be as effective. So all that being said, I was actually pleasantly surprised with how much I liked this movie and actually enjoyed both of those aspects in this movie. I feel like the comedy is on the lighter end, so it wasn't too goofy or silly or making light of certain things, and the romance wasn't too heavy-handed once the movie really got going. So I really didn't mind those aspects, even though those two things are pretty much my least favorite things in a horror movie. It actually works so well in a movie like this, especially this movie in Fresh, because it's so juxtaposed with what actually comes after their encounter. Once they actually get going in the romance, it completely switches all of a sudden, like a 180, and I loved that juxtaposition. It really made the turn that we took that much more effective and more disturbing, because it went from such a lighthearted kind of comedy romantic setting to disturbing horror. And you don't actually get the title screen until like 40 minutes into the movie when it really picks up, and I loved that. Oh yeah, I will talk about spoilers, by the way, later in this video, so I probably already put up a title card somewhere where it shows where I start talking about spoilers, but there are both reviews in this video. So although you kind of know already what to expect to a certain extent when you read the description of this movie or you watch a trailer or even part of the trailer, it revolves around cannibalism. I mean, the name of the movie is very on the nose, some of the marketing for it is cannibalism, right? So you kind of know what to expect with this movie to a certain point. However, my jaw dropped so many times in this movie. It had so many effective scenes that were so shocking to me, so surprising. And I'd say that's the best word for this movie, is shocking. Daisy Edgar-Jones and Sebastian Stan, I think, both did amazing jobs in this movie. The performances were great. I do feel like some of the side characters, not directly her like best friend Molly or anything, I really liked her, but some of the other side characters I feel like were a little bit lackluster and really didn't have too much of a purpose. But I think generally this movie was perfectly cast. I really liked everyone in this and their acting and everything. I think that really helped this movie. I did anticipate some of the scenes to have a little bit more substance. I feel like they would lead you up to believe something's gonna happen and then nothing would really happen, which works in the tone of this movie. Like, there's a reason why we're kind of following Noah and her experience and what's in her head and everything like that, which I really appreciated. So the scenes had purpose. Like, each scene had a purpose, but I feel like they could have explored it a lot more and pushed things a little bit farther. For me personally, as someone who's not a huge fan of extreme horror, I found this movie to be pretty disturbing. It's not extreme by any means. If you're a fan of extreme horror and you watch extreme stuff, this is not going to bother you. But to me, there were certain scenes that I felt so uncomfortable and were genuinely disturbing. So I would say that the horror elements in this were really, really good. Now, my threshold is very low, obviously, so not everyone's going to be super appalled by this or shocked or disturbed by this movie. I just want to say that. But I was shocked and disturbed many, many times. So if you have a similar taste in movies to me, I think this one will disturb you and get to you, but in a good way. It never pushes it too much. In fact, could have pushed it even more if I'm being honest. I will say, if you decide to watch this, you won't be bored. There's nothing boring or slow about this movie. I feel like the pacing is really, really good. Even though, like I said, some scenes lacked a little bit of substance, I feel like the pacing is just right to where you always want to know what's going on. I will say that the ending leaves me a little bit wanting more because I found it to be very predictable. Because of how the movie starts, I kind of have an idea of how the movie's going to end. And I wasn't a huge fan of that. And, I was right. So it is a little bit predictable going in. The ending, not the best or strongest parts of the movie, but I was still satisfied with where it ended and how it ended. I didn't really know how else they would have ended it, so I was happy with it. I feel like the originality was almost there, like it was almost original enough. I feel like this kind of concept has been done before, and it obviously takes inspiration from other movies and things like that. And it does create something a little bit unique with them. You have the modern online dating, setting kind of going on a little bit in the background. So it is a little bit unique, but it didn't like blow me away as far as originality goes. Overall, I would give it 3.5 out of 5 stars. Personally, maybe even 4, depending on my mood. If I was like in the mood to rewatch it or not, I would definitely rewatch it. Definitely would show it to some friends, especially on like a girls' night. I feel like this is a great one to watch with your girlfriends. Okay, so now I want to talk about some spoilers for this movie. Obviously, it just came out today when I'm posting this, so go watch it and then come back and watch the rest of this review and let me know what you think. So the movie does do jumps between characters, which isn't my favorite thing. I don't know how else to really play out the movie, but it does jump between Noah in Steve's basement and her friend Molly attempting to track her down. She gets their friend Paul involved, who's a bartender, and a lot of these scenes just felt very lacking. I feel like they could have really spent more time on these characters and pushed those scenes a little bit more. That's what I really want out of this movie, is to like push it just like a little bit more. I just want a little bit more out of everything in this movie. I thought Paul's character was funny and I really liked him in the end because he like refuses to kind of help because of horror tropes and his knowledge of horror movies. I thought that was a funny touch in a horror movie, but there wasn't enough in there. I feel like I wanted more of them, and sometimes the scenes that didn't follow Noah were just kind of random to me and felt a little bit rushed. Like I wanted more time spent on the outside world as well. I know most of it is following Noah and her experience. That's where the horror elements are, obviously. But I just wanted a little bit more, just a little bit more. I'm not a fan of the technology used in this movie. That might be really nitpicky, but I just feel like in 2022, we can have really accurate technology representation in movies. Like the way the phones worked, the beeping when you hang up a call. That doesn't happen. The way service works, you know, I don't know. I just feel like some of it was a little bit off. Again, might be nitpicky, but I'm very particular about the technology used in horror movies. As I said, it is disturbing, but I do feel like they could have pushed it more because it's disturbing in a psychological sense and a conceptual sense versus visually. I feel like we don't get a lot of visuals in this that really could have pushed this to a way more horrific place. Maybe they wanted to keep it toned down a little bit because it's cannibalism and it's a little bit disturbing anyway, but it's definitely more conceptual than visual, which probably is for the best for most viewers. You don't get a lot of gore, and I was really surprised. You see a leg, a human leg, but that's pretty much it. It's not bloody or anything like that. There really isn't a lot of body horror, which I was really wanting from a movie like this. One scene that I feel like was a missed opportunity was when Noah was talking through the wall to Penny, because there are multiple rooms where he keeps multiple women and harvests their flesh for consumption. It's like a society of cannibals that pay top dollar for these women. But as she's talking to Penny through the wall, there's a moment where Penny says, "And I'm slowly being eaten," and the way she says it is really lighthearted. Like, I feel like they tried to make that comedic versus disturbing. I think that was a missed opportunity. And then when we actually do see Penny, she's missing a leg and an ear, and that's about it. And I wanted a little bit more disturbing stuff with that. And I feel like Penny's delivery and a lot of her lines, she was my least favorite character in that, because it sounded kind of like just a valley girl reading lines on the other side of the wall versus someone who is actually suffering on the other side of the wall, who is actually slowly being eaten. It just seemed kind of like a joke. And that's where it's a little bit more psychological, which would have been fine if they left it maybe to our imagination. We don't actually get to see Penny and how many body parts she's missing or anything like that. As I said, this movie is a little bit predictable because of how it starts. I can kind of imagine how it's going to end. Obviously, this is a good for her type of horror movie. There are 3 women battling him in the end, and obviously they succeed. His wife comes in too, but I really didn't like her character. She felt like a nothing character, like a throwaway one, and she could have been further developed as well. But I felt like he didn't fight back in the way that this character would have fought back. I feel like he would have absolutely lost his mind if 3 women escaped, and he would have just gone completely feral at that point. And he just didn't. He was a little bit too strong. It's one of those, like, you know, you gotta kill, like, fully kill him, double tap it, kill him kind of situations, or he's gonna come back. But in the end, it just kind of plays out like a standard thriller or horror movie, and I feel like they could have done so much more with the ending. Like, by the time the climax was kind of peaking, I was getting a little bit bored because I knew they were gonna survive. Obviously, it's the whole point of the movie is like how women are treated on online dating and how shitty that is. So of course they're gonna not make them die. That would be really bizarre. Well, not make all of them die, but they're not gonna kill Noah, because that would just be a really weird ending for a movie like this set around online dating and modern dating and things like that, and how like sketchy some guys can be. So that's where I feel like the concept kind of fell off a little bit, because it is predictable. You know that's what's going to happen. However, it does manage to genuinely surprise you many, many times. There are definitely some things I was not expecting, like him taking her ass, but I did have an issue with that because she walked pretty much fine afterwards, not like immediately after she was healing, but her ass looked the same, like she still had one. So I don't know what exactly he took, but it looked like a lot. I'm trying not to get demonetized by not describing exactly what happens. He took a lot, but she still looked the same. So I feel like, again, that's another place where they could have pushed it a little bit more. And again, another time where it was more conceptually disturbing than visually. We don't ever get to see the repercussions of him taking her flesh, you know? But still surprising nonetheless. It was still a great movie and very, very highly... Does that even make sense grammar-wise? Very entertaining, highly entertaining, definitely to show new people. So again, this would be a great one to show your friends, just to get their reactions. And overall, it's just a fun ride. That's what I would say about it. It's worth the watch for sure, especially because it's streaming on Hulu. And this could have been a theater release. I think it could have been successful, and I am worried it's going to go really under the radar because it's just released to Hulu, which is one of the reasons why I knew I wanted to make a whole dedicated video for it. So of course, I recommend it. Go watch it. It's streaming right now on Hulu. I don't know if you're outside of the United States, if it is streaming on Hulu or not, but definitely check it out if you can, if you have the means to. Go watch it and come back and leave a comment and tell me what your thoughts are about it. So, and also let me know what other individual original horror movies you'd like me to review. I've had some requests for the Batman, and I'm not sure about that one. I have to watch it first to decide if I want to review it. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.